All right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to everybody who is watching this live, and if you are catching this in the future, this is being recorded. So glad you took the time to either join us live tonight or to watch this later on. My name is Eric Kurtz. I am the Technology Director for North Canton City Schools in North Canton, Ohio. We've been using Google Apps for this is our third year. And so the focus of this tonight is to go ahead and really just give you a broad overview of Google Apps, to talk about what it is, the positives, the challenges, the way it can be used, just to give you hopefully a very solid overview picture of what Google Apps is all about. I am a Google certified trainer and a Google certified teacher as well. And beyond that, let me show you a few resources before we dive right into the meat of all of this. Everything that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight you can find on a specific website, and I'm going to do a screen share here so you guys can see this. That's one of the great things about Google Hangouts is the ability to do screen shares. So let me go ahead and pull this window up here real quick, and then I will share this with you. Sorry for the delay in that. Here we go. And there it is. All right. Everything that we're doing here tonight is part of the Google Education on Air series, where Google is having educators from all around the world share information about Google Apps and related services. So I definitely want to encourage you to check out the Google Education on Air website, and see there's lots of great trainings that are still going on and others that have been already held and are recorded. You can go check out the past recordings. But the website I definitely want to point you to tonight is a website called Apps User Group. Since the focus of this whole session tonight is all on an overview of Google Apps for Education, this is the site you definitely want to check out. This is a website that I set up a couple of years back when my school district first rolled out Google Apps for Education. There were several of us in the Ohio area that thought this would be a good resource to be able to share ideas with other schools that are using Google Apps, and that's really where this site came from. The web address is www.appsusergroup.org. So it's just appsusergroup.org. And there's tons and tons of useful information here. On the front page, you'll find lots of articles that get posted about new things in Google Apps. But there's a great discussion forum with hundreds and hundreds of people plugged into that. If you've got any questions about Google Apps, somebody there can help you. Loads of resources, handouts and videos and help guides on pretty much everything in Google Apps. Ideas for how to use Google Apps, links to schools. There's a list and a map where you can put your school on the map or find other schools in your area that are using Google Apps to connect with, as well as all the presentations that I've done, including the one that we're looking at here today, the one that we're doing, which is Google Apps for Education Overview. If you go to that presentation link, you'll see that I've got all the information about our session tonight, including this is the slideshow itself. So if you wanted to follow along with the slideshow or view it later, right there it says Google Presentation. That's the link to the slideshow that I'm going to be going through, and that presentation is full of all sorts of great links in there. So I just want to make sure you're aware of the Apps User Group website, where you can find all the resources for what we'll be talking about here tonight. All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into this, and I'll pull up the presentation here. So I'll screen share that over to you guys again. And there it is. And there also is a tiny URL that will get you to that same website. So tinyurl.com/Kurtz22. That jumps you right to that exact same page I just had you at, the one for the Apps User Group site that had the link to all of this stuff. All right, guys, well, let's get going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move kind of quick, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to keep an eye on the comments, because what you can do if you're watching this video live, you can definitely put comments right underneath where the video is. There's a comment section there. And tell you what, I'm actually going to post. Let me throw some links in there right now just for anybody that's watching, so you have those links. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some links in there underneath the comments. There we go. And I'll do a quick refresh and make sure nobody has already commented in there. Looks good. Looks like it's just me so far. Excellent. Very good. All right. So again, I'm going to move kind of quick, and then I'm going to pause in between some of the sections and then see if there's any questions on those. And I'll be more than happy to go back over any of these things in much, much greater detail. All right. Well, let's get going here. So you already know who I am. That's just information about me. That's fine. And well, I guess it's sort of an unwritten rule that if you're going to do a presentation, you by law have to have some kind of a comic in there. This one is from toothpastefordinner.com, and the guy says, "I'm about to be late for work. Have you seen my keys?" And his wife says, "Yeah, they're on the nightstand." And he says, "Thanks, baby. You're the new Google." I picked this comic for a couple of reasons. One is that's very much like me. I do have a very difficult time keeping track of everything. And my wife typically saves me. She usually knows where my shoes are, where my phone's at, and where all that stuff is. I get a little absent-minded. But I also chose this because of the phrase, the new Google. And that's really what excited me about this, because when people think of Google, a lot of times, of course, you think of search, which you should. That makes absolute sense. Google is definitely best known for search. However, there's so much more, way, way, way more to Google than just search. And that's what we're going to see as we look at Google Apps. We're going to look at the new Google, all of the awesome things that Google provides to school districts. All right, well, let's get into it. The agenda should be, what is Google Apps? Why use Google Apps? A little bit of information on reliability and security, because that's always an issue. People always do have questions about, well, is it safe? Is it secure? I'm going to talk about the challenges. I don't want to make this just sound like everything's all just perfect and beautiful. There are challenges to any initiative you do, including Google Apps. And then as much as possible, I'd like to jump into some details and some suggested uses for the different parts of the Google Apps suite. So hopefully that'll give you just a really solid overview of Google Apps. So first of all, what is it? Well, Google Apps for Education is a large suite of powerful applications and services. It's not just one thing. It's not just Gmail. It's not just Google Docs. It's way more than that. It's a very large suite of applications. Important, though, to note, they're all web-based. Nothing gets installed. You're not going to sign up for Google Apps and have a bunch of CDs show up at your door that you got to install, on a computer. Everything is completely web-based, meaning that you and your users will access everything for Google Apps completely through a web browser, okay, which is a very nice thing. We'll talk about what the benefits are to that as we go through this. It is provided by Google. Important to note, it is the same programs they use to run their, billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of business. So you're not getting a watered down version of Google's programs. These are the same ones that they use to run their company. What's great, though, is it is free, totally free. There's no catches, no gotchas. Google Apps for Education is a free service provided to schools for staff, students, and parents to use. Now, of course, they sell this to businesses and other folks like that, but for schools, for education, totally free. They also host everything for you, and that's great. So you're not going to have to go out and get yourself a big server somewhere to load things up. No, the applications and the associated data, all of that is hosted by Google, which is a lot of times what we talk about with cloud computing. So that's the idea. So that's a quick overview of what Google Apps is. Let's go a little deeper into it. Even though it's done by Google and provided by Google, you can really personalize it. It can be branded with your school's domain. So our school, we're North Canton, okay, so North Canton, Ohio. Before we moved to Google Apps for Education, our email addresses were, blah, 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 at northcantonschools.org. Well, we didn't have to give up northcantonschools.org to move over to Google Apps. Our email addresses all could stay the same, and we could even make really nice links like mail.northcantonschools.org to jump right into our Gmail, or docs.northcantonschools.org to jump right into our Google Docs. So you can personalize it so it reflects your school district a little bit more. What else about it? What's in it? Let's go through that. Now, Google Apps has I'm going to say, let's say 3 layers of applications. That's probably a safe way to say it. Layer 1 is what they call the core suite of applications. And what makes these things the core suite is you've got loads of control. You can do all sorts of fine-tuning with these core applications that you won't have as much control over with some of the other ones. But things like Gmail for all of your email and your contacts, and then Google Calendar, Google Docs, which is made up of Google Documents, which is like Word, Google Presentations, which is like PowerPoint, Google Spreadsheets, which is like Excel, Google Forms, not really like anything. It's kind of like SurveyMonkey, but it's got a whole lot more neat options for doing online assessments, and so we'll get into that. And then Google Drawings, kind of like Microsoft Paint. There's Google Groups, which allows you to create wonderful groups for your Gmail, and I can talk about what we've done with that in our district to communicate better with students and parents and staff. Google Sites, which is going to allow you to create websites, and then Google Talk, which is part of the whole chat system. So these are your core suite, your core applications in the main suite of Google Apps Red, and we'll get into these in more detail. Then there's another layer on top of that. Now, we're not going to go through all these. I know you're going to see a whole bunch of them there, but there's tons. There's a second layer. It's basically anything that Google owns, any of their programs like Blogger. You'll see Bloggers listed there. You'll see things like Google Books. You'll see Google Finance. Let's move on to the next screen. You'll see things like Picasa Web Albums, wonderful resource. Google Voice, great for the school. Here's Google Reader, Google Maps, YouTube. All of these are services that aren't part of the core, meaning that you basically can turn them on or turn them off for your users. You can't really tweak them a whole lot, nowhere near as much as you can tweak the core services, but still valuable, wonderful services to have and make available to your users. Then there's the third level of things. So I told you it's a really big suite of applications. So you got the core stuff, you got the next layer of Google related services, but then you've got this other whole entire realm of applications that are third party, things that are not made by Google. They're made by other companies, and then you can add those into the Google through the Google Marketplace to your Google Apps for Education domain. So it's things like Aviary. Aviary is a really nice graphic design suite, a lot like Photoshop, and you can just roll that out. What's nice about that is your users don't have to get a new username and a new password for that. They can just go to their Google Apps screen, go to Gmail, go to Google Docs, and from their drop-down they can pick, hey, I want to go to Aviary, and it will log them right in with the same credentials. They won't have to have a whole new account, and everything works together. I mean, that's just one quick example. There's many, like there's Lucidchart, and there's WeVideo, and there's so many great third-party applications. Again, many of them are free and can integrate beautifully with Google Apps. So it is just an ever-growing, gigantic suite of applications. All right? What else is Google Apps? Well, a little bit of a behind-the-scenes thing is that with Google Apps for Education, you also get Google Apps Message Security. This is particularly important for schools. Really, what you're looking at here is a system that will first of all, provide you with your spam and virus protection, which is great. We all love that. But more importantly for schools, it provides inbound and outbound content rules. What that means is you can say, okay, I want to give my elementary students the ability to use email. That's good. I'm going to teach them how email works and how to use it appropriately. But I really don't want them sending email to anybody in the world. No problem. With Google Apps Message Security, you can go ahead and you can control and say, no, elementary kids can only send to their teachers or maybe to other elementary students, but definitely not to the high school or not to outside of your domain. Or we don't want them to be able to send to our mailing lists so that they're not going to be spamming the mailing lists. You have control over that sort of thing, as well as bad word filters to say, okay, here's a list of words that we do not want students using in email. If they put this in an email message, boom, it's going to get blocked. So that's all part of that, as well as email attachment filtering and on and on and on. So that's a really nice extra service that you have as part of Google Apps for Education that provides more safety and security for your school district. Okay. What else is Google Apps? Well, it's a lot of storage, lots and lots of storage. For email, you get 25 gigabytes. Now, that's a lot of space. I'd have to check to see what percentage I'm at right now. I have tons of email, and I think I'm only like at 3% or so of my usage. It's really not much, and I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of messages. So it provides you loads of space for email. And then this is a really key component. You get unlimited space for files that you make with Google Docs. So if you create a word processing document with Google Documents, or a spreadsheet with Google Spreadsheets, or a slideshow with Google Presentations, as long as you make it with Google Docs, it does not count at all, not a bit, toward your storage space. Now, if you want to put things that are not Google Docs files, like you want to put a PDF up there, or you want to upload a Word document and not convert it, or you want to put a PowerPoint and not convert it, You get 5 gigabytes of storage space for non-Google Docs files. But again, totally unlimited. You can have a million files, not a problem at all, as long as they're in the Google Docs format. And then for sites, you get 100 gigabytes for your domains. So loads and loads of storage is included with this. All right, well, I'm going to pause there for just a second. That was the first run there of what Google Apps is. Before I switch over to the next topic, which is why. Why would you go ahead and do this? I'll actually back up a click there. Let me do a quick look and see, are there any questions or comments? So, and again, normally I have a co-pilot with me sometimes who's helping me out, and Sean wasn't able to be with me tonight. So I am doing a quick look here to see if there's any comments. I'm not seeing, that's perfectly fine. I'm not seeing any comments. Definitely feel free to just throw them underneath the video. If you do have any questions, anything you'd like me to go into more detail on, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, well, before I leave this section here on what Google Apps is, I will say one more thing. This question does come up a lot of times. What's the difference between this and just getting a regular Gmail account? If I just get so-and-so at gmail.com, why is this different than that? Well, really, the programs are the same. It's the same Gmail, it's the same Google Documents, it's the same Google Sites, it's the same Picasa Web, it's the same of those things. What's really different, it is this administration. Like when I talked about how you could use Google Apps email security to control who can send email to whom. And when we talked about all these different programs that you can have, you can turn these on or off. You can say, no, I don't want certain age ranges to have Google Sites. Maybe the elementary doesn't need to be making sites. Well, ours do make sites, but maybe you'd say no. You've got that ability to turn things on and off based upon what groups people are in, and so you have a lot more control over what people can do, and that's important when you're dealing with students, when you're dealing with minors. Also, it allows you to control all the accounts. You can very easily generate the accounts, and you can populate your address book with all the email addresses for the staff and the students, so it's easy to find. So really, Google Apps for Education, it's different from just a regular Gmail account in that you've got all of these extra management features, these management tools that give you so much more ability to use these with your students. All right? Well, let's keep on moving. So why? So we know what it is. Why would you go ahead and make this big switch and move over to Google Apps? Well, I've got 7 reasons that usually jump out to me, and I'd love to hear from others. If other people here who are watching have a reason or have any question about that, please put it in the comments there. But one of the very first reasons is access anywhere, anytime. Because Google Apps is cloud-based, because everything is accessed through a web browser, that means you really can break outside of the normal classroom structure of, okay, you have to be in this building, you have to be in this classroom at this computer during this time. Well, no, you can get to your Gmail, your sites, your docs, your calendar, you can chat with others anytime, anywhere. So it could be at school, it can be at home, it can be at the public library, and it can be on any kind of device as long as you've got a web browser. So it could be a school device, but it could be BYOD, bring your own device. Our high school is a BYOD school. Our students can bring their own devices. So it could be on their Nexus 10 or on their iPad or on their cell phone or on their laptop or whatever they might bring. That's fine. So it doesn't matter if it's PC or Mac or Android or iOS. It doesn't matter if it's a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, a smartphone. If you can get to the web, you can get to these resources. And that is wonderful because it opens up the door for all these great initiatives like BYOD and like blended learning, and allows us to be more creative in how we address teaching and learning. The next thing that's great to mention is compatibility. Since Google Apps is the same, since it's all in the cloud, it's the same everywhere. So if a kid is working on something at home and they come to school, no problem. They're not going to have a different version of Google Docs at school than they do at home. They're accessing it the same thing everywhere. Well, this is great because a lot of times we do have compatibility issues where a student will have a version of Microsoft Office at home that is different than the teacher has in school, and they bring something in and it doesn't open up, and that can be frustrating. And so this does reduce the compatibility issues. A third point that's great is that it's modular. And what I mean by this is you can do as much or as little as you want to with Google Apps. You can say, Eric, I've heard all these things you've described. They all sound great. I want them all. Fantastic. Turn everything on. Turn on Sites and Docs and Picasa Web and just turn it all on. That's great. Or you may say, nah, not really. We just want email for our kids. Perfect. Just turn on email. Leave everything else off. That's fine. Or we just want a way to collaborate as staff. Okay, turn on Google Docs for your staff and have at it. You can turn on as much or as little as you want, and you can do it just for certain grade levels. You can say we just want Sites for the high school. We don't want it for the elementary. Totally up to you, and then you can change it whenever you want. That modularity is wonderful, meaning you can take advantage of just the tools that fit your specific needs. What else is great about Google Apps? Well, another thing is frequent updates. Because it's web-based, it's very easy for Google to roll out new features. You don't have to worry about, getting, software and going to computer and uploading or installing new versions of things. It just happens. They just roll out the new things. Now, they do give you warning. You'll know several weeks in advance, typically, here's a new change, and you can be prepared for the new change coming. But it's great because they always are improving things. Just a couple days ago here, I guess it would be, I'm trying to think how long this was. I guess it was just a few days back last week. They rolled out Google Plus to schools, where Google Plus was just something that was available for personal use and just available for businesses or just available for people 18 and older. They did roll out Google Plus to K-12 schools now. So now we as teachers can use it in the school setting as well as students that are 13 and older. And that just, rolled out. And I know there's always new things rolling out. I think about all the new things they've added to Google Docs over the last year. Things like stock photos and things like the new research feature that's awesome. Things like the footnotes or the endnotes. All of these new things that they keep adding to improve it all the time, which is great. It's great except for those of us who make help guides, because our help guides always have to change. We have to keep them up to date. Fifth thing to mention about why Google Apps is that it's easy but powerful. So what I'm saying here, first of all, is the easy part. It's not going to be hard to learn. If somebody's done Word, they'll be fine in Google Documents. If you've used PowerPoint, you'll jump right into Google Presentations with no problems. Email, if you use Outlook, you can use Gmail with no problem. So it's very easy to get in and start using. But it's also very powerful. These are not just watered down light versions of an email client or a word processor. They're actually really nice. Google Spreadsheets, for example, very powerful graphing capabilities, tons and tons of formulas, really, really nice. What I'll use as an example here is that obviously, as a technology director, I use tech all the time. It's my job. I have to use it all the time. And when we moved over to Google Apps, this was again 3 years ago, about 6 months before the move, I said, you know what? If I'm going to ask our district to do this, I need to do it. I need to live just inside of the Google ecosystem and just use these tools, because if I'm going to ask them to do it, I better understand it inside and out. And so I kind of went cold turkey. I just said, that's it. And since then, I have pretty much existed entirely inside of the Google tools. Very rarely, with all seriousness, maybe 99% of my time I'm in the Google tools, maybe 1%, less than 1%, I'm needing to fire up Microsoft Word for something or fire up Excel for something else. Really, for almost the entire time, I'm functioning entirely inside of Google Apps. So they are easy, but they're very powerful. For even a power user like me, they meet all of the needs that I have. The sixth benefit, or the sixth reason why, is because it's free. I guess that kind of goes without saying, but schools, we don't have a lot of money. North Canton is no different than that. We've seen a lot of hard times financially, and it is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that Google provides Google Apps for free to us as a school district. The seventh reason, and the final one that I'll mention here, is the ability to share. And this kind of gets its own page here because it's such an important thing to mention. Because everything's in the cloud, because everything is accessed through your web browser, that means it's not just in one location and only you can open up that file. It's not just on your hard drive. It's not just on your floppy. Well, nobody uses floppies, but it's not just on your flash drive. It's in the cloud, so other people can access the documents if you give them the ability to do so. This opens up truly transformative opportunities in a classroom. We're not just doing something digital that we used to do on paper. We're able to do things we couldn't do before. What this means is you can take any document, any presentation, any spreadsheet, any drawing, anything you make in Google Docs, and you can share it with other people. You can give them view-only rights so they can just see it, and that's fine. Sometimes that's what it needs to be. Or you can give them edit rights to allow them to make changes to the document or to the spreadsheet to work with you on it. And because of that, it opens up all kinds of great possibilities. Like with your colleagues, you can collaborate with your other teachers to do group grant writing. We do this all the time. Anytime there's a new grant, we create a document, share it with everybody on the grant team, and we all work together on one document. We're not each writing up stuff and emailing it together and then somebody having to take all the emails and compile all the changes. It's all done on one live document. Same thing for team newsletters, for collaborative lesson plan writing, anything where you're working with your colleagues. It's a wonderful way to do that. Same for students working together, group projects. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to do this PowerPoint and you're each going to do some slides and then we got to find a way to put the slides together. Nope. Let's do a Google presentation and everybody can work collaboratively doing different slides or working on the same slides together, all on one file, live, collaborating together. This is a great way for you to share documents with your students. Maybe you've got handouts, you've got forms, you've got study guides. You can share those with students and parents. You can make them read-only, which is fine, and then your students can make a copy of them to fill in for themselves. So you create a study guide, make it read-only. They can view it, they can make a copy of it. The copy then is theirs, which they can fill out and then share back to you for grading. So it can make everything entirely digital. There's also options for electronic surveys and quizzes using Google Forms, where students can take assessments online and the data is collected for you, and then you can grade that or have Google spreadsheets grade it for you. And there's options for that as well. So lots and lots of amazing ways to collaborate together. It doesn't just have to be you and your students. It can be your students and kids across the other side of the world, or they can collaborate with some expert on a topic, or you can collaborate with other educators all around the world. It's a wonderful way to, again, break out of just our classroom with this brick and mortar room and reach out to the entire world. All right. Well, let's keep on moving. And I'm going to pause there again, and I'm going to refresh my comments here and see if we've got anything that has popped up before we move on to reliability and security. And at the moment, I don't think I see any just yet, but I'm going to do a quick refresh here again. Nope, I think we look good. Okay, but again, feel free to throw in any comments under the video stream if you do have any. Well, let's switch gears here and start talking about, I don't want to say the negative end of things, but we've talked about all this wonderful, wonderful stuff about Google Apps, but let's talk about some of the concerns or challenges. And one of them is reliability and security. People always are like, why now do we really want to put all of our stuff out there with Google? Is that a good idea? Well, all of these different concerns come up. And so I'm not going to go to all these links, but I'm going to let you know if you pull up this presentation, which again, it's right there on the Apps User Group website. I'll go back at the end of the presentation and I'll point to that site again so you guys can get to it. But this presentation's right there. You can get to all these links through there. But some important key things to know. First of all, there are no advertisements in Google Apps for Education. It is ad-free. You're not going to have to worry about your students, seeing ads popping up as they use the service. So that's fantastic. You maintain total ownership of all your data. Google does not own the data. Yes, they host it. Yes, it's on their giant server farm, but they don't own it in any way whatsoever. If you created it, it is your data. You own those documents, those presentations, your emails. It is yours. Next, they don't share, reveal, or sell any of your data to third parties. So anything you put there, it is never leaving and going out to somebody else. They're not taking that and selling it off to advertisers so they can then try to sell you things. That does not happen. Beyond that, Google employees can't even look at your data without your permission. So not only don't they own it or share it, they don't even look at it. They're not allowed to do that without you giving them permission. Like if there's a problem, you have to give them permission to assist you with getting into your data and taking a look at this. So they are not reading your emails. They're not going through any of your information. Another nice thing, and I don't totally understand what a SAS 70 Type 2 audit is, but apparently what this is like an outside third-party sort of objective audit that can be done about the security of a system. And Google Apps has satisfactorily completed an SAS 70 Type 2 audit, which is great, and there's a link to all that information. As far as being worried about, being reliable, they promise 99.9% uptime, and they keep it. I can barely think of any time in the 3 years we've been using this that we've ever had the services go down, and if something goes down, it's very, very briefly and comes right back up. Also, it's great to know that your data is backed up multiple times. So Google's doing a great job of making sure that if something gets deleted somewhere, there are backed up copies of things as well, and they back up your data multiple times. So you can definitely be sure that if you're going to put things somewhere other than on your computer, this really is one of the safest places you can put things. They're protecting your data. They're not looking at it. They're not selling it. They're just hosting it there for you, and you can get to it anywhere you want to go. And I guarantee you, I trust their servers more than I trust mine, because I only have so much money, and our district can only buy so many servers. And definitely my home computer, I don't trust as much as I trust what Google has there. I feel much, much, much better having my documents and my information safely, securely on their servers backed up multiple times than on my own. All right? But there are some legitimate challenges. So where are the difficulties going to be if you say, hey, let's go Google, let's roll out Google Apps? Well, the first thing that we definitely have to mention is that you're going to have a reliable internet connection, because this is all in the cloud. It's all through your web browser. Well, if your internet connection goes down, that's going to be a problem, because you need to get to the Google services to get to your documents and your email and your calendar. And so that's something that school districts have to really consider. Do you have a reliable internet connection? It doesn't have to be the fastest connection in the world. A lot of this stuff isn't really taking up a ton of bandwidth, but it should be reliable. You don't want your internet going down all the time. Now, Google is adding more and more offline capabilities, which is great. So like if you start up a Google document, and you're going to have to be away from somewhere where you've got connectivity. So it's on your laptop. Maybe you're going to take a flight, you're going to be on a plane, or you're just outside somewhere where you don't have connectivity. You can switch into offline mode with more and more and more of Google services. Keep working on what you're doing, and then when you get back to a place with connectivity, it all syncs back up. So that's really nice that they're adding more and more of those features. Another thing that's a challenge is your web browser. This really is very important, because everything is happening inside of your web browser. It is critical that you have a web browser that is modern and is fast and is standards compliant. Here's what's been happening. Over time, a lot of folks have used Internet Explorer in schools. Very common for schools to use Internet Explorer. But what happened was, schools that use Windows XP, Internet Explorer can't update beyond version 8. That's where it stopped. If you're using Windows XP, the highest version that Microsoft supports on Windows XP is IE8. Well, they've had IE9 since then, and now they've got IE10. IE8's kind of old now. It's at least a 3-year-old browser, if not a little bit older. And the problem is it's not really modern. And there's a ton of stuff that Google Apps does that requires a more modern browser. And so if people are still using IE8 because that's what they're used to, and they've got an XP computer and they can't update the browser, what ends up happening is they get a terrible experience trying to use Google Apps. Documents that should open up in mere seconds can take a minute to open the document. And then you'll click here, but it'll highlight over there, or you'll try to drag something and it won't move, or email will look all jumbled up. It's because the browser is just too old. So it's really critical that if you're going to roll this out, don't put people at a disadvantage. Don't set them up for failure. You need to use a browser like Google Chrome, which is what we use in our district, or Firefox or Safari or Opera, something that you can update to the most recent version on no matter what operating system you're on. Now, if you've got Windows 7 or Windows 8, you definitely can go up to a higher browser version than IE8, but that's critical. Make sure that you're able to run the absolute newest browser possible on all of your systems, and so we do recommend Google Chrome for that. So that is a challenge. Don't set people up for failure there. Another challenge that you're going to want to look at is that Google Apps does lack some features. I know I've said all the wonderful things it does, but there's definitely some things it doesn't do, and you need to know that. You need to take some time and use it and find out the things it doesn't do, and make sure you're aware that there are things that haven't been added to it yet. So for example, in Google Documents, there isn't a way to do columns easily. There is not a columns button. You can't just click it and boom, get columns. Well, you could do a table, yeah, and then you could make the table borders invisible, and yeah, that would kind of create columns. But a lot of people aren't going to want to do that, or they might get confused by that. So be aware. Google Documents currently, at the time of my recording, this doesn't have columns. Will it someday? I pretty much guarantee it will. Yes, they're going to keep adding new features all the time, but be aware it doesn't have that. Another one would be easy mail merge. Yes, there are mail merge options. There are things that can be done. There's great scripts like Autocrat and things like that that can do things like mail merge, but what we think of as, hey, this is an easy mail merge, I've got a spreadsheet with data, I've got Word, I'm going to spit out these labels. No, it doesn't have something quite like that. Another thing that's missing is a real powerful desktop publishing option. Microsoft Office has Publisher with it. There's really not a publisher option. There's not a desktop publishing alternative in Google Apps. You can do a lot of things in Google Docs. You can even use Google Presentations and do some neat flyers and things like that. But just be aware, that's one of the things that is missing. So there are some limitations, and that's good to know that. Understand what the tool is and what it can be used for, and take advantage of the great things it does add, because where it is lacking a few of these things, oh my goodness, it makes up for it with so many other things, like we mentioned, the ability to collaborate, to share, to work on things together no matter where you're at, from home, from school, at all times of day. Those sort of things are such powerful things in addition to what you're losing, that it really makes Google Apps a fantastic suite of applications. But please be aware of what you don't get. And of course, change can always be challenging. So that's always a challenge, is that it does require people to learn some new things, and that can always be tough. All right, I'm going to pause there again. I'm going to do a quick refresh and see if there's any other comments that have popped up yet. I don't see any, so I think we're doing fine. I think folks are just watching and listening, and that is perfectly fine. I said I can definitely go into more details on any of these things. My focus tonight is really just to give you an overview, so I'm going to finish the next part of this by running through each of the pieces, the core pieces of Google Apps, and I want to just talk to you about how we've used it in our district. Just want to give you a little bit of an idea. What has this looked like over the last few years? Now, if anybody has any questions about, more about how we rolled it out, or training or things like that, I can definitely get into those. This session really doesn't focus so much on the rollout as much as an overview. If you want to learn more about the rollout too, please do go to the Apps User Group website. There's an entire section on there where I've got a recorded video session talking all about our rollout and what we did to roll this out in a successful manner. All right, well, let's finish up the tail end of this by talking about the different pieces of the Google Apps Suite. Well, first of all, you got Gmail, and you already know pretty much about that. We mentioned that 25 gigabytes of storage, the ability to label all your messages, put them in folders. They call them labels, but they're kind of like folders. You got filters, so you can automatically send messages into the labels or into the folders. Great search. Conversation view is something I absolutely love in Gmail. Instead of every message being separated by itself, anytime somebody replies to a message, it all gets grouped together so that you can see that there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 messages related to that, and you can open them all up and see them together, which is great. And of course, there's text, voice, and video chat built right into Gmail, so you can either just type live to somebody, or talk to them live, or even do a video chat with them. All right. What have we used Gmail for? Well, the biggest thing is just easy communication with large groups of people. What we've done is we've set up Google Groups, which are like listservs or email distribution groups for just about everything. So our staff, we've got listservs, or we have Google email groups for all of the 8th grade teachers, or all of the high school math teachers, or all of the elementary teachers, and we can very easily, very quickly, just boom, send out a message to those groups of teachers. Same for our students and parents. With no problem at all, we can very simply send out a message to all the 5th grade students or all the 9th grade students, or a teacher can send an email message to all of their students. We create groups for the teachers based upon their schedules. So if they've got 125 kids they see throughout the day, all those kids are already put into a pre-created group, and the teacher can just, boom, send a message out to them. We also harvest our parent email addresses from the parents if they're willing to give those to us, and we create groups for the parents too. So a teacher can say, I want to send a message to all of the parents of my students, or maybe just the parents of my first period class. We create all of those groups ahead of time, and they're updated each night so that they're fresh each day, and the teachers can very, very easily communicate with other staff members, with students, with parents by taking advantage of the Google Groups feature that's in Gmail, which is really, really nice. And of course, we use the chat options a lot, the text, voice, and video chat. Google Calendar is the next piece of the core suite, and really instead of calling it Google Calendar, they should call it Google Calendars, because you can have as many calendars as you want. You can make a calendar for yourself personally, you can make a calendar for your algebra class, a calendar for your pre-algebra class, a calendar for your meetings. You can have calendars for all sorts of different things, and then decide which ones you want to share. So some can be public, some can be private. You can decide to share them with others or not, and you can subscribe to other people's calendars. You can embed them in websites, and of course they sync to your phones. So we use Google Calendar for all kinds of stuff. All of our calendars on our district site, for our buildings, our classes, our teams, our teachers, all of our school calendars are done through Google Calendar and then embedded in our website. And I can pull up these links, go to all those, and I can certainly pull those up if you guys would like to see examples of those. We use this also for our shared resources. So if you want to sign up for a computer lab, you're going to look at a Google Calendar and see what's available to sign up for a computer lab. Same thing for like homework hotline. We used to have a system where parents would have to call in to get the homework. Well, now all of our homework at our middle school, for example, is done entirely through Google Calendars, where every teacher has a link on our website straight to their homework calendar, so the parents and students can see the homework at any time. The last 2 years, we've also scheduled all of our parent-teacher conferences using Google Calendars, which has been fantastic. It takes out the middleman. The teacher can say, here's when I'm available. The parent can sign up for the ones they want, and it's all done through Google Calendars. And lots of other options too, but I'm just hitting on some of the key things there. All right, Google Documents. Very powerful word processing program. Again, you can share documents with others, edit in real time. It's got revision history, which I didn't mention earlier. That's a really important thing to be aware of. Anytime anybody makes any change to a Google document, you can go back and see the earlier versions of it. You can go into the revision history and see who made what change, which is fantastic if you've got multiple people working on a document, and if you want to see which student did how much of the document and who made what change, or if it's just one student who's writing their term paper. You can go back and see over time how they've improved that paper. Well, what did it say before? What does it say now? Did they take into account the suggestions I had for them? You also have a comment feature that's built into Google Documents that allows you to put comments over in the margins. So on the right-hand side, you can add comments and tie them to any part of the document. This is a fantastic way for you to give feedback to your students, whether what their grade is, or if you want to say, hey, you need to, work more on your explanation in this paragraph, or check your spelling here, or whatever the case is. You can provide comments back to them, and it doesn't actually permanently change the document. It's a marginal comment. So when they print their document, your comments don't show up on there. You can also upload existing documents. So if you've got a lot of Word documents, no problem. You can upload those into Google Docs. And if you wish to, you can get them converted over into Google Docs format. And you can also export into all sorts of formats. So anything you create in Google Docs, you can get out of Google Docs if you need to turn it into a PDF or a Word document or something like that. Well, we use Google Docs for tons of things. I mean, I've mentioned the collaborative stuff like, brainstorming and lesson planning and grant writing, all of that sort of stuff. It's a great way to, like I've mentioned, improve the student writing process. Whereas a student writes their first draft and then their second and their third, they're not actually making a new document each time. They're just modifying the original document, and you're seeing the changes that they've made as they've gone through. It's a great way for students to do collaborative note taking. Sometimes, one student will see something that another doesn't. And so what we've seen is maybe a student will start by, creating a Google document, sharing it with some of the other students in class, and then all the students can work together to come up with the best set of notes rather than each one of them trying to create the notes. Fantastic for meetings. We create our agendas with Google Docs, and then everybody can put on the agenda what they need to talk about. And we usually find out that we end up solving about half the things on the agenda before we actually have the meeting, because it allows us to work together on these things even before we officially meet. A fun thing for tag team story writing, I don't know if you've ever done that with your students, where students will write a story in turn, like one student will write a sentence, then another will add a sentence, then another will add a sentence, or a paragraph, or whatever it might be. You can do the exact same thing with Google Docs. Have students start by writing the story and then have that document shared among 4 or 5 other students, and they just go in a round-robin fashion writing a tag team story. And another great thing is peer review. We want to give students as much feedback as we possibly can, and sometimes we only have so much time to be able to do that. So it's great to be able to have other students look at each other's writings and give feedback. Well, what's great about Google Docs, I know you heard me say earlier you can share it as view only, or you can share it as edit. There's actually a third sharing option, which is can comment. And it's kind of between the two. If you give the ability to edit a document, then you can change things on it. Well, we really don't want a student sharing a document with some others and just wanting feedback and having them actually changing the document. But we don't want it just to be viewable where they can't leave any kind of feedback. Well, that's where the commenting feature comes in. You can just give can comment rights, and a student can share their document with 2 or 3 or 4 other students, and those students can take those marginal comments and leave them in the side there to say, hey, here's some feedback on your writing. So it's a great way to do peer review, and the student doesn't have to worry about their document actually being edited, just getting comments put on it. Okay, well, those are a few ideas. Let's hit Google Spreadsheets real quick. Powerful spreadsheet program, just like documents. You can share with others, edit in real time. Just like documents, you can upload existing things, Excel spreadsheets, and you can export into many common formats, Excel, PDF, CSV. Lots of graphing and charting options, many formulas, sorting, filtering, and the great thing is the ability to add scripts. And this really separates Google Spreadsheets from anything else that's out there. Scripts are like little programs that can do stuff for you. Now, you might have heard me say earlier that you can have students take quizzes through Google Forms that then feed their answers into a spreadsheet, and that Google Spreadsheets can grade it for you. That's actually a script, a little program. It's called Flubaroo, and this little Flubaroo script can be installed for free just right out of the menus, and it can grade the students' quizzes as long as you've got a key for it to look at, and it will go through all of those, grade them for you, tell the students what they got, send them an email telling them what they got on it, and giving you all the results so you can see who missed what, do an item analysis as to which problems were giving them the most difficulty. And so these little scripts, and there's many more like that, add this great functionality to spreadsheets that you wouldn't have any other way. So we use spreadsheets for tons of stuff. I mean, it's a great way to collect and analyze data for a class, whether it's a science experiment, whether it's a math class and the kids are measuring things and we're putting all the data together and we're drawing conclusions, we're making graphs, we're making predictions. You can track inventory with this, create a spreadsheet, share it with the teachers. The teachers can all fill in the book numbers or supply information or whatever, and then you're collecting that information back from the teachers. It's a good way to share information out, like student account information. If the teachers need a quick way to look up a student's username or password, you could put all of that into a Google spreadsheet, share it out with just the teachers so nobody else can see it, and they can get to that very easily. It's a great way to collect data. We do a lot of tests that are still paper and pencil. Not all of them have become digital, and some of those are used for course recommendations. There's like an algebra prognostic test and the Pimsleur test to see if they can take world languages courses yet. Well, all of those scores need to get collected somehow, and so again, we'll create a spreadsheet. We'll go ahead and copy paste in the students' names, we'll share it out to the teachers, and the teachers will enter in the scores from the paper pencil tests, and that allows us to collect the data back and then put it into our testing system so that we can track all of that, and many, many more things. So Google Spreadsheets, wonderful resource. Google Presentations, that is like PowerPoint, so it's a slideshow program. Again, just like the others, share with others, edit in real time, upload PowerPoint, export as PowerPoint. You can do animations, transitions, you can embed images, videos, more. This is a Google presentation right now that you're watching here as I go through. So, you would do all the normal things you would think with this, creating instructional material to teach the class, or having the students collaborate to make multimedia presentations. Our fourth grade students do book talks with Google presentations, and it's been a great way for them to do that. Other fun things you can do, you can create online comic strips where each panel of the strip is another slide in the slideshow. I've got a link to how to do that. You can also make interactive quizzes where the students will, get questions and then click on the answer, and it'll take them to a different slide and tell them if they're right or wrong. Or create interactive stories like Choose Your Own Adventure stories, where each slide is another page of the story. And I've got links to show you how to do that as well. So lots of really fun things you can do with Google presentations. Up next is Google Forms. This really deserves its own whole session, and typically it is. Normally I do about a 1-hour session all on Google Forms, and again, that's all on the Apps User Group website. So if you go to the website, you can see that entire presentation. Google Forms, though, real quickly, it allows you to create surveys, quizzes, forms with 7 different types of questions. It can be anonymous, or you can collect the students' usernames, and this is all shared online with whoever's going to fill out the surveys or the quizzes, and then their information gets collected back into a spreadsheet that you can then analyze and do whatever you want with. Oh my goodness, there's so many things you can do with Google Forms. I mean, we do tons of surveys anytime parents, staff, we need to survey them about our BYOD program or whatever it might be. Wonderful way to collect survey information from them. Lots of routine forms that we have, our staff change form or a nomination form for an award. We do all of those through Google Forms now. Student registration, signing up for labs, collecting data for science experiments, online quizzes, brainstorming, creating word clouds. Anytime you need to get information from a group of people, Google Forms is a wonderful way to be able to very quickly create a form, share it out, collect the data, and then analyze that data. And we use it for lots and lots and lots of things. All right. Lastly, we've got Google Sites. Google Sites is the web design tool. You don't really need any knowledge of HTML. You can just jump right in and start building an awesome website. It integrates beautifully with all sorts of services. So if you've got a Google Calendar all ready for your class, boom, stick it in your site. If you've made a Google form that you want your kids to fill out, boom, just stick it right in your site. It's great. Maps, images, documents, all those sort of things integrate beautifully into it. You can make them public or private, so it can be just for your internal use, or it can be public for anybody to see, or even parts of it can be public and parts of it can be private. You can have a public website with one page that's just for your students or just for your colleagues that requires them to be signed into their account to be able to get into it. That's the page level permissions option. It's also easy to embed content from other providers, video, and other websites, and you can customize it to look however you want. Well, we use Google Sites for tons of stuff. Our entire district website is done with Google Sites. We converted it over this last year, so all of our building websites, our district websites, our activities, our teacher class web pages, all of that is getting converted over, or has been, to Google Sites. It's a great way to do a collaborative student project. So if you want students to, instead of making a PowerPoint or making some sort of a project that they have done in the past, a website is a great project for them to work on together. We do it for student portfolios. I see lots and lots of people doing more and more of that. We've actually had that done as low as 2nd grade in our district, and I've got links to show you that, where we've got kids as low as 2nd grade who are putting information in about what they learned each week in school, and the teachers are helping them, of course, to add in pictures, scanned in images of their artwork or of things that they've created, and it's building a student portfolio. At higher grade levels, I've seen some really impressive stuff with that. It's a great thing for online learning activities. We've got a high school teacher who does like a role-playing history adventure through a Google site, and on and on, more and more options there. Okay, now I know I flew through those. But I'm just trying to give you a big overview of what those different services are and what you might be able to use them for. Okay, now I'm going to pause there again because we are just about out of time, but at least it does pause us at a good spot to be able to see some of these resources. I'm going to refresh my screen on the side and see if there's any questions or comments. Yes, there is one just saying that they're working on piloting this in their district. Well, I'll let you know. Definitely, if you are wanting to try to roll this out, again, the focus of this one tonight was really just to give you an overview of what Google Apps is. I would strongly encourage you to go to the Apps User Group site and tell you what, let me go ahead and I'm going to bring that back up here. I don't think there's anything else other than my contact info. Okay, but that's just, you guys already know that. All right, so the Apps User Group site, I'm going to share this screen and pop back over to there because I want to make sure you guys can see that again. So hey, there I am. I'm back again. All right. So let me go ahead and let me pull back up my Apps User Group site so that you guys can see that. And there it is. Should be popping up for you. There we go. And again, that's appsusergroup.org. If you're thinking about rolling out Google Apps for Education, please go ahead and get plugged into this site. There's so many people here on the discussion forum that can answer questions and help you. But you'll see under resources, we've got a whole section just on implementation. And that implementation section has all sorts of links to Google's guide to going Google, and then links to our information about rolling out Google Apps. If you go over to the presentations section, in that drop-down, there is one specifically on rolling out Google Apps for Education. And what you'll find in there is a lot of resources. There's about a 1-hour video that talks all about how we rolled out Google Apps and links to tons of stuff. The handouts we gave to our students and how we explained it to the parents, and our discussion document that we used pre-rollout with our staff. All sorts of information there that maybe would be useful to you to see how a rollout could be done. So be aware that that information is available, as well as many other presentations. That's where you'll find things like using Google Forms and how to make the comic strips and how to make the interactive presentations and all of those sort of things. So we go into a lot of detail on those. All right, well, I'm going to refresh one more time and see if there's any more questions or comments, and if not, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to check one more time. Looks like we're good. Don't see anything else at the moment. So I want to put a big thank you again to Google for what they provided to us as school districts and for encouraging these Education on Air sessions that you're seeing right now. Definitely check out the Education on Air site. There's lots of other sessions. I've done, I think, 3. This is my 4th one this round, and I've got 2 more coming up still over the next few weeks. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to either join live or watch this recorded later on. Please feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Eric Kurtz. You'll see my web address there, www.erickurtz.com. That has links to all of my things, my Twitter and my Google Plus and my different websites and stuff. And I love to hear from folks. So if you are rolling out Google Apps, let me know how things went. I'd love to hear great ideas on how you're using it. And if you have any questions or comments, certainly feel free to contact me. Other than that, thank you guys so very much for joining, and have a fantastic night. Take care.
Thank you so very much for having me here today. That is really nice. Let's go ahead and get started here today. I think by law you always have to have a comic or a little cartoon with any presentation. You have to do that. Here's the one that I'll be sharing today. It's got this guy there saying, "I'm about to be late for work. Have you seen my keys?" And his wife says, "Yeah, they're on the nightstand." And he replies, "Thanks, baby. You're the new Google." Now, I picked this one for a couple of reasons. One is that I kind of look like the guy, little by little. The hair is disappearing. But also, I do this all the time. I mean, seriously, I forget things all the time. My wife saves me a lot with that because I have a hard time keeping track. I got so much stuff going on. I'm a creative kind of person. I'm always thinking about stuff, but I can't find my keys. So I do identify with that. But I also chose it because of the phrase, the new Google. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll be seeing today. When people think of Google, a lot of times you just think of search, which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what they're known for. They're a search engine. But oh my gosh, they are so much more than that. And so hopefully that's what we'll be seeing today is the new Google. We'll be talking about Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Docs and Google Forms and all of the amazing things you can do with Google Apps. It really is very, very different than what some people might be aware of. And hopefully we'll be seeing that today. The type of stuff that we will be talking about. Now this is more of just the morning agenda. We'll do some different things after lunch. And definitely, I'm seriously more than happy to adjust this however works best for you guys. So please, please, please ask questions, give suggestions. If you want to catch me in between sessions or at lunch and say, well, what about this? More than happy to adjust this so that it meets your needs as best as possible. But my idea for the morning is to start off with what is Google Apps? Why use Google Apps? Why would you take all the time and energy to convert to this and use this? What's the benefits of it? I want to talk a little bit about reliability and security because somebody always has that question in the back of their mind, and that kind of also taps into Google Apps challenges because I don't want to make it just sound like this is just the most wonderful thing in the world. It is great, but I want to be realistic too and let you know these are the things you've got to address. You've got to think about some things as you make these changes. And then I want to spend some time going into details on some of the core apps. I want to make sure you understand what they are, but I want to share what we've been doing with them. Creative ways we've been using Google presentations and spreadsheets and forms and calendar and sites and some ways of how to use it in your classroom, other ways how to use it for your own personal productivity, other ways for how your school can use it. Lots of different ideas there. And so that's sort of the idea for the morning. Now, we're going to do basically 2 one-hour sessions. It's all one big session, but probably my guess is we'll probably get through the challenges here in this first hour, then we'll take a break for 15 minutes and then do the second half of this. But that's sort of the idea for our morning session there. And I do understand we got a bit of a mixed crowd here as far as some folks have been using Google Apps and some are still waiting to get their accounts because it's getting rolled out a little bit differently in the different districts. Just by a show of hands, who has at some point logged into your Google Apps account? Got a few people here and there. Okay, very good. So sounds like more new than not, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Okay, even those who have logged in and have used it, hopefully some of the introductory stuff I have here won't be too much of the same stuff. It'll hopefully give you a good overview as well. All right. Any questions before we launch into this? Questions, comments, anything? Let me know at any point. All right. Thanks, guys. All right, here we go. So first of all, what is Google Apps? Well, Google Apps is a suite of applications. Okay? It's a lot of things. Google Apps isn't just Google Docs. Okay? Google Apps is lots of programs. You'll see in a moment dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of programs. So it's a suite of very powerful applications, okay, and services, and they're all web-based. That's a really critical thing. That's really important to understand. Nothing gets installed with Google Apps. No one's going to give you a CD and say, take this home and put this in your computer. You don't have to worry about, well, it doesn't run on a Mac. Well, no, it runs on everything. Okay, it's web-based. It's all about if you can get to a web browser, you got it. Okay, and we'll talk later about why that's so valuable, why that's so important, that's a feature of it. But keep that in mind. This is all web-based. It all runs inside of your web browser. This presentation I'm showing you right now, that's not a PowerPoint. That is a Google presentation. And you're looking at a web page. This is running in my browser right now. Everything I do is completely inside of Google Docs. All right, next bullet, it is provided by Google. And it's important to know this is the same stuff they use. When you get Google Apps for Education, you're not getting a light version of the Google tools. You're not getting a, a watered down option. No, this is actually what the people at Google use to run their multi-billion-dollar corporation. They use the same Gmail you'll use. They use the same Google Docs you use. Now, sometimes they get, beta features a little early on, but the point is, it is the same thing, and they trust their entire company to run on this, and they're making it available for us. Which is the next bullet point. It is totally free for schools. And there really isn't a catch there. There's not like, yeah, but. No, it really is totally free for schools to use Google Apps for Education. Now, you may say, why? I don't get that. Why would that be free? Well, keep in mind, it's not free for everybody. Google Apps can be available for businesses as well, and they have to pay for it. If a business wants to use it, a commercial business, they have to pay for it. Okay, so they make plenty of money off of that. But really, Google's main source of revenue is advertising. They're an ad company. That's what they are. Google, yeah, they're a search engine, but basically they're an ad company. They sell advertising, and that's how they make the vast majority of their money. So they're okay. They're doing just fine. Financially, so to offer this to schools isn't harming them. I mean, it's not a great financial hardship for them to offer this to schools. And I think they've got two reasons that they usually give for. Well, one reason they give, and I think another reason that exists. And the one reason they give is that they got their start. Google was created by two gentlemen when they were at Stanford University, and they got their start and their support through education, and they want to give back. So this is the way they are giving back to the education community by saying, we're going to make this available for free to schools forever. Well, I think there is certainly a second reason, and that is, if you get little kids using Google products, chances are they're going to use them when they're big people too. And so I think obviously they're trying to get people to appreciate their products so that when you do grow up, you will continue to use their Google services, which makes perfect sense. I have no problem with that at all. And the last bullet point about it is that it is all hosted by Google. It's what you call cloud computing. I'm sure you've heard that term thrown around a lot. The idea being that you don't have a Google server down the hall here somewhere. Okay, you're not running it's all out there on Google servers. They're taking care of that. In our district, we no longer have an Exchange server. Now, you very well may still be using Exchange. Perfectly fine. You may eventually switch over to Gmail, but we got rid of that server. We don't need it anymore. We'll let Google host all of that for us. So all of the programs, all the data, all the heavy lifting is being done by Google servers out there somewhere else, and it's being hosted out there in the cloud for you. Okay? So that's a quick definition of what Google Apps is. Let's go into a little more detail. And again, questions at any point, let me know. Here's the nice thing about it. It can be branded with your school's domain. I know I've been saying Google, 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 Google. Well, it doesn't have to be all Google. You can use your own domain, and it can still feel very personal. So when somebody sends me an email, yeah, it's through my Google Apps, but it's not Eric Kurtz and a Gmail address, okay? It's, my email address at northcantonschools.org. You're allowed to brand Google Apps with your own domain so that it still has your personality, has your school district represented, which is very nice. So when our school wants to check, our teachers want to check their mail, they go to mail.northcantonschools.org. Their calendar is at cal.northcantonschools.org. Their Google Docs are at docs.northcantonschools.org. You can make this very customizable to your district, which is nice. You don't have to get new email addresses and start all over. You can still use what you've always used. Now, I do still have my own personal Gmail address, don't get me wrong. I do have Eric Kurtz at gmail.com because I keep my personal separate from my work. So, and I would encourage you to do that. Definitely have your own personal Gmail account as well, and then you can, play with that and experiment with that and get into Google Docs that way as well as through school. So, what comes with Google Apps? So we're still talking about basically what this is. Well, there is this core group of applications that you're going to get. And we're going to talk about each of these as we go through this today. You get, of course, Gmail, which is your email client, and that comes with your contacts, your address book. Google Calendar. You get Google Docs, which is composed of several pieces. Google Documents, which is like Microsoft Word. Google Presentations, which is like PowerPoint, Google Spreadsheets, which is like Excel, Google Forms, which really isn't like anything else that I can compare it to. It's really awesome, and we'll talk more about Google Forms, Google Drawings, which is like Paint, I guess. Then you've got Google Groups. That's sort of like, you guys do email distribution lists here where if you want to send something to all the, math teachers or something, you could send it to one email address and it goes out to all of them. Excellent. Google Groups is that same way, and we'll talk about what we've done with that, where, yeah, you could have one email address that then goes out to all of the, middle school students or the high school staff or whatever, and that's Google Groups. Google Sites is used to design web pages. We'll definitely talk about that. Google Video, we don't use a whole lot. We use YouTube more often than that, but Google Video allows you to upload videos that are for inside use only. Okay, if you have videos that do not need to be out on the world, out on the internet for the rest of the world to see, but it's just for your school district to view, you do have space in Google Video to upload videos as well. Now this is what they call the core offerings. Okay, these things are the basic, foundation of what Google Apps is. However, that's just the beginning. Okay, those are the core offerings. You also get tons of other things, and obviously we're not going to read through all of these, but you get all kinds of other Google products as part of Google Apps. For example, I see on this screen Blogger. Blogger is a great blogging tool. Now, I mentioned Google Sites for creating web pages. Excellent for web pages, and there's a very good reason to use Sites, but if you just want to blog instead, Blogger is a really nice blogging tool, and that's just part of Google Apps. You just get it. Other ones, there's so many to pick from. Picasa Web Albums. I see that on this screen here. Picasa Web Albums is a wonderful way to collect and organize your pictures on the internet that you can then stick into Google Docs and stick into Google Sites and stick into your Gmail and stick into other things and make those web albums available for folks if parents want to come and look at these, albums of the field trip and this and that and so forth. And many others. Google Voice, on and on and on and on. Then beyond that, beyond what Google offers, you can also install third-party applications. And this is what's so neat about Google is they encourage people, hey, design something that fits in with our stuff. And so people do. You guys use like Inspiration, Kidspiration. Does that ring a bell for anybody? The mind mapping tools? Have you heard of Inspiration, Kidspiration, those programs? Well, there's a program called Lucidchart. Okay, Lucidchart is a company that makes a web-based mind mapping tool. Okay, they're not a Google company, they're their own third-party company. But they've designed it in such a way that it integrates with Google Apps. What I mean is, we can go into our app settings and we can turn on Lucidchart. And now all of our students, all of our staff can just click a Lucidchart button, boom, go right to that site, log right in with their Google account. They don't need a new username or password. And now they can create mind maps and they can do all these really cool things that we used to pay money for to buy Inspiration or Kidspiration, now totally free through Lucidchart and integrated right into Google Apps. And there's many, many more than that. That's just one quick example of a third-party tool that can be plugged right into Google Apps. So, and many of them are free, like Lucidchart, like I mentioned. What else about Google Apps? Google Apps for Education also comes with what's called Google Apps email security. And this is really nice. I understand you were saying students might be getting Gmail soon. Is that right? Okay. That's a big step when you start having students using Gmail accounts. And so you might be concerned. Well, what should they be allowed to do? Who should they be allowed to send email to? What if they send bad things? What about that? Well, you'll be glad to know that Google Apps comes with Google Apps Message Security, and it provides you with a lot of really nice tools. Okay, obviously you've got the normal spam and virus protection, which is really nice. I mean, we all expect that, so you do not get. My inbox is very, very clean. Google does a fantastic job of grabbing all the spam and throwing it into a spam folder. They do a great job with that. But Google Apps Email Security also provides you with inbound and outbound filters and content rules. I can say our elementary students should not be able to send email to other students. We just want them to be able to send email to the staff. We can turn that on. Or I don't think, our middle school students should be able to email outside of our domain. They should just be able to email other students and staff in the domain. We can turn that on. Or I'm worried that they might send something that's inappropriate. I want a bad word filter. No problem. We have a bad word filter. I got to create it. That was a very fun afternoon. I just went out in the hallway with a microphone and then went to the teacher's lounge and picked up a few more. We have about 100 and some words in there. We used to have more, but you end up getting false positives. Well, I guess you could use that word a different way, So we've got about 100 words that there is no reason anybody should be putting these in a school email message ever. It just doesn't make sense. And so there's a bad word filter. If the students send a message that has one of those in there, it bounces it back to them and says, no, you can't do that. And if you want, you can have it send a copy off to another email address where like a principal or guidance counselor could check these. You could send it off to a quarantine folder. So lots of great security tools built in there for your email as well. And that's very nice to have. Also, there's plenty of storage with Google Apps. You get 25 gigabytes for email. Now, I don't know how that compares to what you currently have, but that was a lifesaver for us. When we were doing our own Exchange server, there's only so much space. You got to back it up, and you got to make sure that you're, paying for that or figuring out how to do that. And so we often would get the message, your Outlook or your Exchange mailbox is almost full. Please delete stuff. And so we were bumping up against our limits quite a bit. You can get 25 gigabytes of storage with Gmail. Nobody's even close to that. I mean, not even remotely close. That is a ton of space, and I've got a lot of email, and I'm barely scratching into that. So you get lots of storage space for email. You have unlimited storage space for Google Docs files. Now, what I mean by that is if you make a word processing document in Google Docs, or you make a presentation like this one in Google Presentations, or you make a spreadsheet in Google Spreadsheets, it counts 0 towards your storage space. You can have 1,000 Google Docs. You can have 10,000 Google Docs. It does not debit against your storage space at all. So you can have unlimited amount of Google Docs. However, if you say, I want to store non-Google files, I want to take a Word document and I want to put it in my Google Docs and not convert it. I just want to store it there. I just want to have it available there so I can download it or share it to others. Or I want to upload a video, or I want to upload an image or something into my Google Docs storage. You have 5 gigabytes, which again is a lot of storage space. Very, very large amount of storage space. And then Google Sites has 100 gigabytes for your domain. So lots and lots of storage space in Google Apps, which is nice. All right. Well, that's going to transition us from what it is to why. Any questions on the what about Google Apps? You feel you have a good overview of that? Okay. Let's talk about the why then. So hopefully you're encouraged by that. Hopefully that sounds interesting. Oh, those sound like good things. But let's get into the real reason of why you would actually make this sort of conversion. Now, there's probably way more reasons than I'm going to list. I'm going to list about seven reasons that for me have been really important for our switch to Google Apps. The first one is access anywhere and anytime. This is really critical. This is a great thing. Because Google Apps is, cloud computing. It's web-based. It's all in the browser. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're at school, if you're at home, if you're on vacation, if you're at the public library. If you can get to a web browser, you can get to all your stuff. Okay. I brought my laptop today, but I really didn't need to. Okay. I could have just sat down at any computer, logged in with my Google Apps account, and everything's there. All my documents, all my Gmail, all my calendar, everything is stored there. Okay. And I really do. I mean, and I'll talk more about that later, but I have not used, nothing against Microsoft Office products at all, but if I'm going to, tell people, hey, we're a Google Apps district, I'm going to lead by example. I have not used Office products for like 2.5 years. I do everything in Google Apps, but I have access anywhere I go, even on my phone. I have an Android phone, but if an iPhone, that's fine too. But on my Android phone, I can go into my Google Docs and pull up my stuff, my Gmail, my calendar, all of that. Well, this is great because it really opens up a lot of opportunities. Once you're no longer tied to a particular type of computer, like, oh, you have to have a PC, or you have to have a Mac, or you have to have this version or that version, it really opens up things because it allows us to purchase used computers. It allows us to use older devices. It allows us to tell the kids, you can bring your own device in. We're a BYOD high school, and next year probably our middle school as well. Bring your own device, okay? The students are allowed to bring in their cell phones, their tablets, their laptops, their e-readers, their MP3 players. There's rules, all that. I mean, we've got it very, very clear what you're allowed to do and not. But they're allowed to bring their own devices in. Well, they can do that because we're a cloud computing district. Because I don't have to worry. Okay, you've got an iPad, that's fine. You got a Galaxy Tab, that's fine. You got a laptop, that's fine. Mac, PC, doesn't matter. If you can get to the internet, you can get to the stuff. So the kids can get to their docs, and they can get to their Gmail, they can get to their calendar, and they can get to their sites, they can get to everything no matter what. Doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter what kind of device you're on. That also opens up opportunities for like maybe blended learning, different types of digital learning opportunities. Maybe school doesn't always have to be exactly the way it is, a brick and mortar building. Maybe for some kids, this doesn't quite work for them, and they need the ability to be able to do some classes at home. Or they meet face-to-face some days, and then other days they're online. Well, once you move everything into the web browser, you can do that. You're able to give instruction and collaborate and communicate and work together in the web browser. So access anywhere and anytime really opens up a lot of new possibilities for you that you wouldn't have had otherwise, which is great. Plus, it also means no more flash drives and stuff. I mean, years ago I would have said no more floppy drives, but obviously nobody uses those anymore. But no more flash drives or CDs or whatever. Which, I mean, I guarantee I've had enough kids come up in tears. I sat on my flash drive and it won't work now, and they lost all their stuff. Well, nothing to be lost. I mean, it's all in the cloud. You can just, boom, pull it right up through Google Docs. Another important thing why you would go to this would be compatibility. As I mentioned, we're not a wealthy school district, so our version of Microsoft Office is pretty old. Now, we still have Office, don't get me wrong. I'll explain what we've done with it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not using it because I'm trying to lead by example there. But no, I mean, our staff still have Office, and some of our student labs still have it where they need it. K through 8, the students don't. Okay, they're all on Google Docs, but the staff still have access to Office. But our Office is old. The student version is Office 2000, and the staff version is Office 2002. So that's 10 years old. Because of that, you'd have kids at home who have a newer computer that has Office 2007, Office 2010, something else, and they would bring things in that weren't compatible. And we're always dealing with that thing, oh, I need to find a computer where I can open this up type of thing. Well, compatibility is no longer an issue with Google Apps because everybody's on the same version everywhere. If you make a Google Doc, it doesn't matter. You can open it up anywhere at any computer, and that's really saved a lot of headaches with compatibility issues. Another key reason why Google Apps is that it's modular. Now, you're going to hear me talk about all the crazy things we do with Google Apps. That's because we basically install every piece of it and just have fun with it. But you don't have to. You can say, we're just looking for a way for the kids to create documents online. We just want Google Docs. That's all we want. No problem. Just turn that on. Turn everything else off. Or you could say, nope. We just want an email client for our kids. We want some way for students to have email. No problem. Turn that on, turn everything else off. Or turn some things on for others and off for others. Like, say, we want our high school kids to have email, but not our elementary kids. No problem. Turn it on for the high school, turn it off for the elementary. It's modular. You can turn on or off whatever pieces you want. Don't feel like if you go Google, you gotta drink the Kool-Aid and completely go Google and it's entire. No, you don't have to. You can pick and choose the pieces you want. Use them in conjunction with what you have. It's free. What do you have to lose? I mean, so find the pieces that fit what you need and use those. All right. Why else? Frequent updates. Again, I said we've got Office 2000 and 2002. Those don't update. I mean, if I turn on one of our computers that has Office 2002, it will still have Office 2002 on it. I mean, I would have to go out and buy a newer version of Office, and yeah, you get little updates. That's true. You get little patches and fixes and stuff. But once you buy traditional software, you've bought it. You pretty much have it. With Google Apps, it's constantly being updated. Now, this is good and bad. The good is you're always getting new features. If I think back over the last couple of years, oh my goodness, they have improved so many things. I mean, they didn't used to have a way to put in, like, footnotes and endnotes in documents. Then they added that. And they didn't used to have animations in their presentation tool like PowerPoint does. Now they have animations. I don't really use animations because I'm just trying to give you information, but you can put them in there if you want. They're in there. They're always adding new things to it all the time, which is fantastic. They listen to people's needs and they go, oh, hey, that sounds like a good idea, and they find a way to roll out new features. Now, the only negative is if you're a trainer, all your help guides are wrong. And so it's like every couple of weeks I'm like, oh, rats, they changed that again, and I got to go in and fix all my help guides. But all the time, at least once a week, there's some new feature in one of the products. And that's really great to have those updates. And you don't have to install the updates. Remember, it's all cloud-based. They make the update, you have the updates. You don't have to worry about running around installing things. Another reason that it's great is it's easy but powerful. What I mean by that is you can get into this pretty easily. None of these programs are intimidating. It's like, oh, well, that's like a word processor. Oh, it's like PowerPoint. Oh, okay, that's like a spreadsheet. Oh, I get it. It's email. It's a calendar. You can get into them very quickly, and so they're easy to use. But that doesn't mean that they're limited. They're actually very powerful. I mean, you can do, and that's why I go back to what I was saying. I've used Google Apps exclusively for the last 2.5 years. Very few things do I ever step out of Google Docs and go to some other program for. And I do a ton of computer stuff. So if it can support all of my computer needs and all the things I do, it is very powerful. You can make really nice documents, really nice presentations, very sophisticated forms, really nice sites. You can do lots of great things. It is a powerful tool. Of course, it is free. I always have to have that in there. That is a very good benefit of it. And then the last benefit that I'm going to mention right now, maybe it's the most important, or the thing that really separates it, the thing that makes Google Apps so different from traditional Office applications, and that is sharing. Okay? Because it's in the cloud, because all of this is out on Google servers somewhere, you can share your data, share your programs, share your documents with anybody you want. Okay? You can give them view-only access if you want. So you could create a document, give view access to whoever you want to. They could see that document online as well. Or you could give them edit rights if you wish. They could collaborate with you. They would also be able to open up the document at the same time you have it open. And you could be typing, they could be typing, and you actually see each other typing on there. As you're typing, their words are appearing, and it takes a little getting used to, but it works really well. Okay? This opens up all kinds of opportunities. And here's an important thing with technology. You don't want to just do what you've always done, but just do it electronically. If you roll out Google Apps and a year later it turns out that all you're doing is exactly the same instruction, exactly the same interaction, exactly the same sort of things, you're just doing it in Google Docs rather than doing it in Office or rather than doing it on paper and pencil, that's unfortunate because we want to stretch. We always want to grow and do new things. And there's a lot of opportunity to transform what you're doing in the classroom by using these tools in ways that you couldn't if you didn't have them. Okay? Collaboration is one of them. To be able to work together easily with other people really gives you power. It gives you a lot of opportunities that you just can't do otherwise. You don't have those options. So like if you're staff members, you guys can work together. You need to write a grant? Fantastic. Create a Google Doc. Share it with each member of the grant team, and you all can work together on one document. No longer, hey, you write this, you write that, let's combine them together. Who's got the most recent version? Let's update it. Here, guys, I'm emailing you back out. Here's the newest version of it. No, it's one document that everybody works on. Same thing for writing a team newsletter or collaborative lesson planning or having a meeting coming up. We do this with my tech team. I've got about 7 members total who are connected to my tech team, and we try to have a meeting every 2 weeks. Well, I'll make an agenda, and I'll send that agenda out, and I'll say, okay, guys, it's blank. Here's the agenda. Fill it in. What do we need to address? What are the things? I'll put my stuff in there too, but everybody will put their stuff on there, and they use different colors. We each will choose a different font color so we can tell who's who easily. Well, what ends up happening is half of the things get fixed before the meeting starts because we're putting them on the agenda going, oh yeah, I remember that. Let me take care of that real quick. And so we end up wiping out half the agenda before we even get to the meeting, which is great. But this is also great for students to work together. Group projects. That's a fantastic thing to be able to say, okay, I want you guys to do a presentation, and it's no longer you do these 2 slides, all these do these 2, you do these 2, and then somehow, how do we put these together? How do we take these PowerPoint slides and put them together? No, it's one presentation, and everybody works on it together. And that's fantastic for kids to be able to collaborate together, to chat, to leave notes for each other, to work on group projects, and it keeps track of what everybody does. We'll talk more about that later. There's a revision history feature in the Google products that you can go in and see color-coded every change every person has made to the document. So you can see which kids actually typed which things and what % they did versus others. That's a really nice tool in Google Docs. You can share handouts and forms with students and parents. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So you can make things just view only so that they can pick them up as like a form or a handout. You can give electronic surveys and quizzes to your students, and the data will get collected. We'll talk about that. Students can turn things in digitally. That's part of our afternoon that I'm planning to talk about is the paperless classroom. How if you use sharing and collaboration, you don't have to have papers anymore. Students can start writing their term paper, share it with you. You can leave comments on the rough draft. They can edit it, make changes. You can keep leaving comments back and forth. And this one piece of paper, well, it's not a paper, this one digital document can exist for the entire course of writing this paper and all the revisions until the final copy. And never once does a piece of paper have to be printed out. So sharing and collaboration is fantastic with Google Apps to be able to connect with others, to work together. And remember, you got total control. You choose. Is it a private document? Is it view only? Is it edit? Who's allowed to edit it? You have total control over that. All right? So those are a lot of hopefully good reasons on why. Pause there for a moment. Any questions on any of that? Why Google Apps? Okay? Definitely let me know if you have any questions. Bless you. All right. I do want to mention this real quick, though. Now, I don't want to put fears in your head, so maybe you're not thinking these things. But if anybody has any like, oh, Eric, that sounds good and all, but still, that's a company, it's Google, I don't know, what if? So real quick, let me just reassure you on a couple of things. There's a lot of reliability and security built into Google Apps. First of all, no advertisements. I know I said they're an advertising company, sure, but not in Google Apps for Education, they're not. There are no ads that pop up in Google Docs. Nothing's going to show up in their Gmail. There are no advertisements in Google Apps for Education. Point 2, you maintain total ownership of your data. Google clearly, and I've got links to every one of these to back them up. If you want to open up the presentation off the Apps User Group site, click the links. You can read right there where Google says so. They do not own your data. Yes, it's on their servers. You completely, totally own your data. It is not theirs, it is yours. Not only that, they don't share it, reveal it, or sell it to third parties. They are not going to take anything you put in Google Docs, in your Gmail, in your calendar, and in any way ever share that with any sort of vendor, third party, not at all. It stays entirely inside of Google Apps where you've put it. Even more than that, Google employees are not allowed to even look at your data without your permission. It's on their own server. They cannot read your email. They cannot open your documents. If there's a problem, you actually have to give them permission to assist you in opening those things up. It is your data, your documents. Nobody's sitting there on a Friday night reading your Gmail. Okay, now your tech person might be. No, I won't say. But no, they wouldn't do that. Not on Friday nights. Is it usually a slow Saturday? Yeah, exactly. But no, Google is not doing that in any way at all. All right. Now the next one I don't totally understand, but it sounds important. Google Apps has passed what's called an SAS 70 Type 2 audit. I don't really know what that is, but it sounds good. I've clicked the link, I've read it, I still don't totally understand it. What it means is this: they have allowed an external company to basically audit them and look at them and keep them accountable, and they have passed the highest level of the security audit that other companies have to go through. So they are audited by other companies. They promise 99.9% uptime. That's important because if all your stuff's up in the cloud, you got to be able to get to it. So, and that is true. Very, very, very rarely do their services go down. Now, when they do go down, it's usually in the middle of a training, from what I found out. Usually I'm presenting somewhere, and that's the 1 hour in the 6 months that it goes down. So that does happen. Yes, there are outages. It does happen, but it is incredibly rare. It has never, we've used it for 2 years. It has not posed a problem for our district. Okay, they are up, like I said, 99.9% of the time the services are up and running. And your data is backed up multiple times. Okay. So they back up your data like 3 different times in all these different ways as well. So just want to ease any fears you might have about reliability and security. At the same time, though, I want to be honest here. There are challenges. This isn't all just absolutely beautiful and wonderful and so forth. There definitely are challenges here. So a couple things to talk about. You do need a reliable internet connection. It's on the web. If your internet's not working, you can't get to your stuff. Okay, so you do have to make sure that you've got a reliable connection. In our district, we were fortunate before financially things got too bad to be able to put in fiber connections. And so we do have fiber between our buildings, and we have fiber down from our high school to the county office that connects us out to the rest of the world. So we do have good bandwidth. We do have good connectivity, and that's important. Now we're wireless as well, and so we had to make sure we have enough access points and all those sort of things like that. So that's important. If connectivity is an issue, this is going to be there's a challenge there. You got to figure out how you're going to address that, but there's a challenge there. Now Google's trying to help. They're offering more and more offline capabilities. Okay, this summer I know they're adding even some more features to Google Docs where you'll be able to basically launch Google Docs even if you don't have a connection. Do your work, and as soon as the connection comes back, it'll all sync up. Okay, they've done that to a degree, but they're adding even more features. Where you see this happen a lot of times is people talk about doing this like on a plane flight or something. They start working on a document, then they get on their plane because they got to go fly as a business person, whatever. Well, they got to turn off their internet connection or whatever for a while. Soon, they can keep working. They can keep typing their document. They can keep working, and as soon as the internet connection comes back up, everything syncs up. And Google is doing more and more and more to make that available. So you can get your Gmail offline, your calendar offline, your documents offline, all of that. Work on them and then sync them back up once the connection returns. Another thing that's an important challenge to be aware of is because this is all online, your web browser is really important. You've got to use a modern web browser. Now, I'm not going to, bash Microsoft. It's nothing like that. We use Windows on all our computers, but their web browser, IE, is not always the best solution when it comes to Google Docs. Okay. Now, we use Windows XP on our computers, so we can't upgrade to the latest IE browser. I think IE 9 is only for Windows 7. We have to use IE 8. That's the latest we can go. We have found that IE7 and IE8 are so slow when it comes to Google Docs. Okay, don't set yourself up for failure. Don't set your students up for failure. Don't judge Google Docs by a browser that doesn't render it well. Okay, IE is a great browser for showing web pages. It's not a great browser for running applications. Okay, if I take IE8 and I go to open up a Google Doc, I'm not exaggerating. It can take 30 seconds of nothing, just waiting and waiting, just to open the document. Well, that's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that. And then scrolling can take forever, and then you click here and it highlights the wrong thing. That's because IE7 and IE8 are not designed to support what's going on inside of Google Apps. It's much more sophisticated. So we suggest Google Chrome as the web browser. Firefox is certainly an excellent web browser as well. I won't say anything negative about that, but we have found Chrome to be the absolute fastest and the best integrating. Google makes Chrome, they make apps, they work together great. But Firefox is a great one as well. But the point is, you need to use one of those modern standards compliant browsers like Chrome or Firefox to be able to get out of it what you should. When I open up a Google Doc, it just opens. There's no delay. When I scroll, it just scrolls. But I use Chrome. So please be aware of that. I don't want anybody to judge it and say, man, I tell you, I do not want to use this Google Docs. It is so slow. Check their browser before anything else. Chances are they're using the wrong browser. I do want to mention as a challenge also that Google Apps does lack some features. I said that it's a great, great, powerful program, all that. Yeah, but guys, Office, Microsoft Office, yeah, that is the premier Office suite. There's things that Microsoft Office does that Google Apps doesn't. And vice versa. There's things Docs does that Microsoft Office doesn't. But for a quick example, just be aware of this. Columns. Yeah, there actually isn't a columns button in Google Docs. If you just want to do like a newsletter with 2 columns, there actually isn't a columns button. It doesn't do columns yet. Now that may be a deal breaker for some people. Typically it's not. You can use tables instead. You can make a table with 2 columns and type your stuff in the table cells, and you can make the table invisible if you want. So you can mimic columns, but no, it does not have a columns button. Now, I bet it will. Give them another 6 months, because if I went back 6 months, there were other features that it didn't have that it does now. They're always adding new features all the time. But at this moment, as of this session, they don't have columns in there. Mail merge. Yeah, there's a way to do it, but not an easy way yet. There are options, but to do a very simple, easy mail merge like Microsoft Office does, no, there's not an easy way to do that. Okay. Desktop publishing option. If you use Office and you use Publisher, there's not really a Google equivalent to Publisher. If you want to do like greeting cards and stuff, yeah, you can use Google Docs, you can do this and that. It's not quite the same as the desktop publishing you get with Publisher, so be aware of that. Now, what does that mean? Again, for our district, what that means is we have not taken Office away from our staff. See, I think that would be the wrong choice. That's just my opinion. This is me saying my opinion. If we were to take Office away and say, here's Google Docs, I think what people are going to notice is what they're missing. They'll say, I can't do this or I can't do that. But because we left Office for the staff and then gave them Google Docs in addition to it, the focus is, look at what else I can do. Oh my goodness, I can share this and we can go paperless, and this forms thing is awesome, and oh my goodness, this. So they look at all the great things about it rather than looking at what they're missing. And so I think that's important. I don't want to make people mad and have them get a bad idea about this. So we have not taken Office away from our staff. I don't think we'll take it away from our secretaries anytime soon, because they really need like mail merge and things like that. And if it's not there, if the feature's not there, well, it's just not there. They have to use Office for that. But not so for our students. Like I told you, K through 8. We talked to the teachers. We looked at, what do you guys do with Microsoft Office? Tell me about the projects you run and the stuff you do. And we went through it and we said, you know what? There's really nothing the students do, K-8, that has to be done in Office. It can all be done in Google Docs. And so we pulled off Office, pulled it off all the student computers, K through 8. And so they just use Docs. Our high school students still have access to Office because we teach some business classes in our vocational program at the high school, and they have to have Office for that. So we definitely do leave it there for them as well. But just be aware of that there are some differences. There are some things, some features it does lack. And of course, change can always be a challenge. I think that just has to be listed as something. Anytime you make a change from what you're used to something different, that is a challenge that you have to address.